Sometimes you hear about something parent to parent or dad to dad. Well, that was the case with Brian Burgett. Brian spent most of his working career as an IT professional, but it was dairy. That's what had his interest early on. Now, a few decades later, it does again, and it's all because of his daughter. Hi, I'm Dave Price. Now, Brian has a vision so that families like his daughters can enjoy dairy again, even people like his daughter whose body does not enjoy dairy. Brian's also hoping to help the dairy industry. He wants to help his daughter and maybe his grandson too. All right, Brian, one of the things that I think is cool about the project you've begun is that for the most part, this is really kind of dedicated to your daughter, right?
Yes.
So dad to dad, that is a heck of a connection that I think a lot of us can understand. Before we get into everything you're doing, can you talk about what your daughter experienced and how that's led you to almost a full circle moment, which we'll explain too, with what you learned in college and your sort of reinvention after retirement, what you're doing now. But first, let's talk about your daughter.
Sure. She was actually living in Denver. We were living in Iowa at the time, located in Columbus, Ohio now. But she was experiencing some health issues. She was going through allergy testing, different functional testing. Essentially, they told her, you need to go gluten-free, dairy-free. So that was the advice. And I started asking questions, and she's like, I don't know. They just said I need to do this. And go ahead.
Yeah. So then, I mean, as the parent, you immediately want to solve this. This wasn't an easy solution, though. So what's going through your mind as you're listening to what she's finding out?
Myself, I'm a big milk drinker.
Same.
Dairy is in my blood, and we'll get more into that.
Maybe a good percentage of your blood, actually.
Yeah. But my immediate reaction was, there's so much nourishment, vitamins and minerals in natural dairy. And I do understand some people have allergies, but I couldn't just let it drop. My nature is to dig into things. I have a science background. Although my career hasn't been in science, I've always held on to that. So I started doing some research, trying to understand if there's milk alternatives that are true dairy that she might be able to utilize.
Will you talk about this detour? So when you went to college, you had a plan.
Yep.
Farm crisis shows up. You come up with a different plan, and you're kind of going back sort of to your original plan, or at least a relation to it. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I tend to adapt to things. I don't mind change. A lot of people aren't that way.
Yeah.
But growing up, I loved animals, wanted to be a vet. So went to college. I was in pre-vet. Actually ended up getting animal science degree from the University of Nebraska, with a major in dairy science. I was starting to apply at vet schools, thinking, okay, backup plan there is I'll go into research, because I've taken all kinds of chemistry, biology, all of that. Then an offer came up that the farm crisis was going on, number one, mid-'80s.
That's a big number one.
Yeah. So the research thing and anything egg was kind of questionable at that point.
Sure.
But then an opportunity came up to get into coding and developing. About the same time, personal computers were coming out.
Okay.
So I'm really dating myself at this point. So I went down that route. became a developer, got into project management, managed IT projects for 20 some years at several Fortune 500 companies. But all that time, I still have this ag background, this science background. It's just the nature of me.
And did you
Um,
grow up in this before college?
I grew up in a small town outside of Omaha,
Okay.
um, less than 1,000 people at that time.
All right.
Omaha's kind of eaten it up at this point. But back then, I lived in town, but all my friends lived on the farm.
Okay.
So I was constantly baling hay, helping with their sheep, helping them with 4-H animals. When I was in high school, I spent a whole summer at my uncle's in southern Nebraska. They had a dairy and beef farm.
Okay.
So that's where I kind of got introduced to dairy and milking cows. Um, there again, when we had supper at night, we'd go out with a pitcher, scoop the milk right out of that.
It's as
So
fresh as it gets.
yeah, so I know today raw milk is considered a big thing. That back then I was drinking it. And then all through college, while I was getting my animal science degree, the summers I would spend on the weekends. I did the second shift for a local dairy farmer, so I would milk their 80 some cows every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I've been around dairy quite a bit. So that's kind of where I came from.
Yeah, so this circuitous route, so you sort of resettle in Ohio to be close to the kids. And this has been kind of just hanging out in your brain all these years about there's got to be a way to do this, right? So how did you decide to do something about it?
Yeah, so it's probably been about 6 or 7 years ago when she was having that. And I had seen, shortly before that, I had seen on the evening news a quick little special about A1 Milk Company.
Okay.
They were out of New Zealand, I believe, and they were trying to, get a market in the US. And A2 is a certain type of protein within cow's milk that doesn't cause discomfort and digestion problems. So that was always in my mind. So when she came up with that, I started looking at their product and, had her try that. That seemed to help. But over the last 6, 7 years, I've continued to kind of follow it while I'm in corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
My family thinks I'm strange, but I'm a science geek. So like I say, I keep following that, and A2 is becoming more and more mainstream. A2 itself is a protein within the milk. I think when you walk down the milk aisles, you'll see, okay, here's A2 milk.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good for me, but I don't know why. That's where this concept that I have is more focused on functional health. A2 is kind of the genetic, what is it? And mine is, what's it do for you? So again, my family, when I moved to Columbus a little over a year ago, left my job and they said, you need to focus on this and get the word out there. I have run it by a lot of different people just to make sure that it's just not my own brain coming up with it. I've talked to a nutritionist, has a master's degree, and said this all makes sense. Talked to a PhD microbiologist, and I could get into that level, which is almost beyond me, but he totally agreed with the amino acid chains and how it breaks down and how BCM7 gets released in the gut as you're digesting milk.
So you essentially want to be like, what is your entity? How are you structured? What do you have set up?
Right now, like I say, I kind of got pushed to start to make this more public and take it out and educate. My primary goal right at the moment is starting to educate people. And my daughter that had the health issues, she's kind of joining me with it. And since she's younger, she knows social media, so she's going to help me on that side of things.
She's going to make her old man a social media star here.
Who knows? I'll be on TikTok at some point.
You could, but your ultimate dream here is that you want some kind of recognizable seal, stamp, something, so that when we're walking down the grocery aisle, that symbol will stick out to us and we know exactly what this is and what it means, right? Is that fair?
Right. And the term that I've come up, I created the term non-BCM. I've got a trademark on that, but larger than that, what my seal would be is non-BCM certified.
And non-BCM is what?
That is the lack of the BCM reaction to, basically, if you have A1 milk, it'll cause the digestive issues and all of that sort of thing.
So potentially is this, and we had, you contacted me after we had a podcast with an Iowa dairy, and he was talking about A2, and that was one of the kind of newer things they were looking at. This, in theory, if this keeps growing, this could really open up additional opportunities to the dairy industry to reach consumers who maybe have been shying away from dairy because of the gut issues, right?
Right. And maybe not only the gut issues, just the message out there. Everyone just, I don't know if you say everyone thinks it's cool to be dairy free. And some people truly need to be dairy free. But for the most part, it's what I'm trying to do is create a premium dairy classification. If you want to think about like non-GMO or gluten-free, kind of that same thing. So as you walk down the aisles and you see something that's gluten-free and say you're celiac or it just bothers you a little bit, you're going to choose the product that has the seal on it for gluten-free, or even the same in a restaurant. You go down the menu and it's like, oh, I'll have the gluten-free selection.
And A2 is already growing beyond a quarter milk.
Right. It's started to get into other products, which back when I first started thinking about this, there was only A2 milk. Now there's a lot of producers that have full herds that have been genetically tested and proven to be only A2 cattle. There's an ice cream out there. I don't know if I should name drop, but Alex ice cream.
Hey, if you're going to be an influencer, this is going to be part of your new gig, right? Talk to your daughter.
Yeah, there we go. So in the last few months, I ran across Alex ice cream. It's in, I think, Whole Foods and some of those, but their source is supposedly only A2 milk. And I've seen online where people rave about it, that they have no digestive issues. There's, I don't know how many people are familiar with the Oklahoma area, but Brahms ice cream is a big brand, and they have an entire herd of their own that's fully A2. And you know, we keep talking A2, and yes, what I'm talking about, the source of non-BCM certified would be A2. But I'm more focused on the functional health side of it. You can tell somebody that, oh, that product has or is made from A2. That doesn't tell you a whole lot. I know non-BCM may not tell you a whole lot right now, but 10 years ago, if somebody said gluten-free, they didn't know what that meant. So that's kind of where I'm headed with this. Maybe another way to think of it is, say you go to get gas at the, quick shop or whatever. You pull in and it's overwhelming when you get to the pumps. There's 4, 5, 6 choices. One might be ethanol, one might be premium, one might be something else. I look at that and it's like, okay, I'm just buying the cheapest one. I don't understand what the difference is. If there was something on there for the premium or the ethanol that said, hey, you should get 10 miles more per gallon, some code or sticker, that functionality is what's important. I would pay that premium probably.
Okay, so you've spent all this time talking to people, doing your own research, all of those things. What does it, I'm curious what the response is. Do you have to, because you're not an 80-year-old guy who's done research all his life in dairy, right?
Right.
So do you have to establish some kind of scientific street cred? You know what I mean? And I'm not knocking anything here, but sometimes that's an additional hurdle that somebody may have to overcome. You start this as a concerned dad who happened to have his collegiate training and all in a lot of this stuff, or at least the same family of things.
Yeah.
As you're having conversations with people, what is that like?
Um, it's usually very interesting. I had a conversation just a few weeks ago. We were out of town for a wedding, but with a mother and her daughter both. I don't know. I think they were just asking me. I hadn't seen him for a while. What are you up to?
Hmm. You're
It's
like,
like,
hey, I got
okay,
a good
here
story.
we go. But she opened up and said that she's lactose intolerant, so is her daughter.
Mm,
Um, and I was saying maybe it's not lactose because there's studies out there saying it may be the BCM7 reaction as opposed to lactose. So I was explaining to her kind of the research I've done and then, really got going back and forth. And then she wanted to know where the website is. On the website, again, it's a lot of educational things that I'm trying to put out there and trying to be transparent. There's things I've pulled the USDA nutrition value for milk. And also side by side, I have the plant-based, almond, oat,
hmm.
soy, all that. Just comparing, showing how naturally nutritious milk is. And again, when I say milk, my definition is milk comes from mammals. So when you say oat milk, almond milk, all of that, they are not true milk, but they're trying to be a substitute for it. So most everything in those are added, because you don't just go get an almond and get milk out of it. And so
Sure.
there's a lot of additives there.
Sure.
So I just have things like that on the website that I've stumbled across in the last few years, just trying to point things out. Not trying to hide that there's those alternatives, but trying to show that. But back to the conversation I had, they've tried to use lactose-free milk, dairy-free products. And she did tell me one interesting story. She said, every once in a while she'll try ice cream or something. And she said, sometimes she reacts, sometimes she doesn't. And I said, I bet it's related to the A1, A2 proteins, because potentially you could get a batch of milk that has a lot of milk from A2 cows mixed with the A1 or vice versa. If you get a lot of A1, you're going to have the reaction
Hmm.
where there's more A2. So that, again, another thing that I started going down that path, trying to understand.
I'm not smart enough to explain this, but I know with my wife's a wine drinker. Well, we're both wine drinkers, but for there are certain reds that she gets a headache from,
Mhm.
and certain reds she doesn't, and I can't remember what's what. Red's always good to me, so fortunately I don't have any headaches. As long as you know your limit, and then you've earned it by then. But um, And that is just, as I'm listening to you, I'm just sort of reminded of that, things just impact people in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't make me go down the path of researching wine. I'm going to stick to milk.
But it's also, I find your whole connection here interesting in that, be, and which probably impacts your view on this, right? You are an old school, traditional, I can drink milk the way it is, whether it's right out of the barn or right off the grocery store shelf. And, fortunate that way that it doesn't mess with your body in any way. Your daughter, unfortunately, has issues from traditional milk. So I would think that helps guide you in this sort of research information gathering process, because you're not narrowly focused on, I hate, like for me, I can't stand onions. So if I had to do a research project on onions, I'm probably pretty biased and I'm going to make sure I'm going to prove that they're terrible for people or something. But my family would disagree. But I would think that helps your information gathering in that, it works for you, it doesn't work for her. Let's look at it all and see if we can find some answers.
Yeah, and I'm a real big proponent of look at both sides of whether it's milk or whatever, politics, try to understand each side of it. Be open to it and, call out when something makes sense or doesn't make sense. So I really tried, again, with what I'm trying to do, mainly education at the moment, but ultimately getting that label on foods to make it easy for consumers to know which dairy is good for them. And I know vast majority of the people are fine drinking milk. But this is for all those people that either potentially have like a lactose problem or it just irritates them a little bit, just trying to give them an alternative. And
So to get this kind of to the next level, rather than just a super helpful, friendly website where you can find out all kinds of stuff, to actually get the ultimate goal, what you want, does this have to be adopted, embraced, endorsed by some type of scientific health organization, agency, something?
that would probably be helpful. I've read a lot of studies, and there's a lot of things, especially pointing towards the digestive, and it may or may not be lactose, it may be BCM7. There's a lot of studies out there around that. And I hesitate to go here, but there's even other studies that look at with this BCM7 reaction. It's an opioid, and it binds to the opioid receptors. So it could even, and there's limited on this, but it could even impact and cause complications with like ADHD, diabetes, autism. Again, I'm not focused on that, but I've stumbled across some of that. So there may be bigger things out there. I'm just focused on, I want to drink milk, or somebody may want to drink milk and not have that reaction. I have a grandson, he eats ice cream, and within 30 minutes, it's like, where did he go? He's in the bathroom.
Wow.
So I might need to get him some of that Alex ice cream and experiment on him.
See if that works, right? Yeah. What a fascinating journey. Brian, really appreciate you walking us through all of this, and I hope you'll kind of keep us up to date on where this goes so we can have you on again in the future as this kind of builds out and people understand more about this. I think you probably have a lot of folks in the dairy industry who will be of particular interest about the potential of this.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it can become a revolution within the dairy industry. Just kind of parting thoughts. I was looking back, and I mentioned plant-based. Those really started to eat into true dairy sales about 10 years ago. They've been around for a while, but in the last 10 years, they've made inroads and really made it hard for true dairy. So I'm hoping, maybe this will help, promote clean dairy for people.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
So we'll call this Brian's second career, and no offense to all that time he spent in IT, but it seems like this one's going to have a little extra meaning. Now, to learn more about what Brian is doing and to see the website that he's devoted to this mission, check out our profile piece about him. You can find it now at AmericanFarmlandowner.com. It's the place where landowners get their news. You can also get the newsletter emailed straight to your inbox every week for free. AmericanFarmlandowner.com. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and thanks for caring about the future of our farmland.